Episode number 10, Off-SZN show. Today is March 5th, 2025. And once again, thank you for joining us. If you want to get in touch with the program, you can always find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. It is at BetTheBeach, and I'm always available via email, betthebeach@gmail.com. Today is our 10th episode of the Off-SZN show, Season 1. It is also the penultimate episode of the Off-SZN show, Season number 1. Next Wednesday night, March 12th, 2025, we say goodbye to the long, cold, lonely off-season, and the off-season show in the progress as we start our first challenge event on the Beach Pro Tour the following week. It's about March 20th, the first event of the tour from Mexico. A lot of U.S. teams on that entry list. We're certainly going to get you some live streams, some good content here on Bet the Beach. So the off-season show may be going away, but the content will not be. Stick with us on social media. Stick with us on YouTube. We'll be posting live content all throughout the course of the 2025 season. A little bit to talk about tonight. Last week on the program, we talked about the Manhattan Beach Open and the history of the Manhattan Beach Open on the men's side. Today, we will flip the page. We go proverbially and literally from one side of the page to the next. We take a look at 7 decades of the Manhattan Beach Open on the women's side. Who has their name on the pier the most times? Who is queen of the pier currently, and who's the next queen of the pier? We'll talk about all that as it relates to specifically the Manhattan Beach Open, the granddaddy of them all, coming up here in just a couple of quick minutes. Before we get to that, a couple of stories that have popped up over the course of the last week or so. On Instagram, earlier today, Avery Drost announcing his new partnership for the 2025 season, we have to assume, with Wyatt Harrison. Wyatt Harrison, 25 years old. His best finish on the AVP so far. Last year, 2024, contender-level event, Virginia Beach. Wyatt lost to Sean Cook and Cody Caldwell, 3-setter in the semifinals with his partner Brian Miller. They ended up taking a third in Virginia Beach, the contender-level event, the best finish of Wyatt Harrison's career. They also has played with some success on the international stage as well in the Beach Pro Tour Futures event in Halifax in 2023. Wyatt taking a 5th with partner Charlie Saragusa. A little bit notable there, I would say, Avery Drost, after spending 2 years playing with Phil Dahlhauser domestically and then a variety of partners on the international stage, turning to a much younger guy, 13 years his junior. Avery been playing on the tour since 2009. So interesting to see a vet pick up a young guy. That's a combination that has had success for decades. Notably, I always think of specifically Johnny Hyden picking up Tri Bourne and the magic that happened there over the course of the next 6-8 years of that partnership. Ken Avery and Wyatt had that level of success. I think it'd be a little bit late in Avery's career to expect that, but maybe they can do some damage on the AVP tour. Definitely at the contender level event, can they challenge and pop up into that top 8 for qualification? I think it might be tough, but they're certainly on the list now, and they're certainly a team we're going to have to pay some attention to. Moving on, the Beach Pro Tour announcing some schedule changes. This was a few days ago. It's the second time they've forced me to update my 2025 combined calendar. So Beach Pro Tour, let's stick with what we got now, how about, and not keep moving it so I don't have to keep doing the adjustments to the calendar. Notable, I would say, more notable than the more recent updates. So the original update, we had a couple of conflicts with the AVP schedule. So their schedule came out, the AVP schedule came out, and then we started to look at what the conflicts were. 3 conflicts right off the bat. The qualifier in April with the Saccharima was a challenge, or then became an elite level event. Denver and Stade were always going to be a conflict. Lead champs in Hamburg always going to be a conflict. So a relatively conflict-free original release of both schedules. Seemingly, the AVP and the Beach Pro Tour, at the time, I would have said maybe at least taking a look at each other's calendars and doing their best to avoid one or the other. As it turns out, that may have been a little more the AVP avoiding the Beach Pro Tour than the other way around. February 11th, the Beach Pro Tour adds 2 events, a conflict in the event in Turkey, June 13th and the 14th. And then they added the Poland event, which has moved around twice now, Star Jablonki, and now it's Warmia, Missouri. I hope I'm getting those pronunciations right, and I'm sure that I'm not. Sorry, my Polish listeners. That was the point. At that time, though, the Poland event was in August and was not a conflict. So even still there, both tours relatively, I want to say conflict-free, because that quali in the Saccharina event was kind of a big deal. Saccharina getting moved from a challenge to an elite in the last tournament shuffle, that was a much more big deal. And the league champs in Hamburg, I always thought, not that big of a deal. It's one Elite 16 out of maybe a dozen in the 2025 calendar. And I just didn't think that was a big deal for the 4 teams that are going to make league champs. It's 4 teams that have to miss one Elite 16, not the end of the world. So they had the 2 events in the latest reshuffling, and again, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And then just a couple of days ago, February 28th, the Beach Pro Tour announcing additional changes to its schedule, adding 2 events, one in Baden, Austria, and one in Montreal, Canada, which we'll talk about here in a minute. It's the only international event that I've been to so far. I'll have some comments on that. And then they moved the Poland event from what was August to now June to a conflict spot. So now you take a look at the list of AVP Beach Pro Tour conflicts now, and now I think it's fair to say the Beach Pro Tour is doing exactly whatever the F it wants as it relates to stepping on the AVP's schedule. Take a look at that stretch of events. Let's just start with the end of the year in August. League Week 7, announced by the AVP months ago. Beach Pro Tour goes in and puts a challenge event in Austria. August 8th and 9th is the conflict there. Now you're thinking maybe the top tier teams in the AVP League don't need to be going challenge events in Austria. That's possible. But remember, World Champs is in November. To qualify for World Champs, you need to have a certain number of finishes in the 2025 season, and you need to be in the top 4 to make that country quota. So for a team, a lot of our domestic teams are going to be looking to be one of those 4 teams that qualify for World Champs. So finishes at that point in the season, August, are going to become more and more important if a team hasn't had the success on the international stage that it hopes to early in the season. The next big shoe to drop, the Beach Pro Tour announcing the return of the Montreal Elite 16. Montreal, Canada was on the books, and a tournament in 2023 was again on the books in 2024, got pulled late. I would want to say it was only like 6 weeks before it was scheduled to happen. The Montreal Elite 16 getting removed from the Beach Pro calendar in 2024. It's back in 2025, and it's back in a major conflict spot with the granddaddy of them all, the Manhattan Beach Open. This is notable for a variety of reasons. In a little bit, we're going to talk about the history of the MBO and players that have never got their names on the pier that you would maybe have expected to by now. One of those players, a Canadian, Brandy Wilkerson, played on the AVP Tour for many years, has never been a Manhattan Beach Open Finals winner. You're going to expect her to make a decision now between the MBO and Elite 16 in her country. Challenging decision there, challenging schedule spot for her and for a lot of teams domestically in the United States, where Montreal is one of the easiest trips you're going to make to play volleyball at the highest level. These first 2 in Mexico are good opportunities. That's why the entry lists are so deep with U.S. teams. The Brazil events are good. The Montreal event is very good as far as travel goes for a lot of these teams. So to schedule it the same weekend as the Manhattan Beach Open is a huge disappointment for me. What does it tell you, or what does it tell me? It tells me the Beach Pro Tour, as I said, doesn't really care what the AVP is doing. The Beach Pro Tour is going to do what the Beach Pro Tour is going to do, it thinking that it is now the predominant organization, the predominant vehicle for professional level beach volleyball. Hard to argue, I would say, having the best teams in the world in both genders. But the AVP getting big brothered, in essence, big sistered by the Beach Pro Tour here. Notable that the Beach Pro Tour is willing to say, we already know what your schedule is. We're going to take the biggest event on your calendar, and we're going to put an Elite 16, Elite 24 level event. Sorry. We're going to look at your calendar that's already out. We're going to take a look at your biggest event, your Wimbledon, the granddaddy of them all. What the AVP and what a lot of United States and Americans will tell you is the biggest beach volleyball event in the world. And the Beach Pro Tour just goes ahead and puts an elite level event in our backyard the same weekend. big deal for me. Just when you talk about the dynamics and the politics between the AVP and the Beach Pro Tour, um, I was a little disappointed to see that the Beach Pro Tour opted to put an elite in that same weekend as the Manhattan Beach Open. Now, side note, I am not in any stretch of the imagination unbiased in my disappointment with this decision. Montreal is about a 6-hour drive from where I sit here in Massachusetts in the Northeast. I don't have a lot of high-level Beach Pro Tour events that I can drive to. The couple in New York on the AVP calendar this year, you know I'm a Nitro guy. You know I'm pumped for those New York events on the AVP, bringing beach volleyball to the East Coast, to the Northeast. I'm pumped for those. Montreal is an Elite 16 that myself and my wife Lindsay got to go to 2 years ago in 2023. We drove the 6 hours. We stayed in a hotel. We watched 3 days of high-level beach volleyball. Brandy, Mel ended up winning the whole thing. I think Therese and Megan took a second there. Was it Therese and Megan or was it Betsy and Julia? It might have been Betsy and Julia after that big come-from-behind third set victory over Aunt Patricia and Duda, if I recall correctly. I think Miles and Andy were maybe in the finals of that, either finals or semifinals, that Montreal Elite 16 back in 2023. So it's an event on the international stage at the highest level that I can drive to. So the fact that that is scheduled the same weekend as the biggest event on the domestic calendar, the granddaddy of them all, the Manhattan Beach Open, it's a disappointment because your attention's got to go to one or the other. So decisions to be made there about what gets Bet the Beach's primary level of attention. I think I stick with the AVP probably. This is largely an AVP fan base, I would say, as we sit here in the United States following the U.S. teams. So I think the granddaddy's going to take precedent there over a tournament on the international stage that we can drive to. Disappointing for me personally. I think disappointing for the sport because you're forcing a lot of local top-level teams, no more notable than Brandy Wilkerson and Melissa Humana Paradis, forcing them to make a decision between what is in essence the biggest event on the calendar and an Elite 16 in their home country. And we already knew the league champs in Chicago, same weekend as the Hamburg Elite 16. We already knew there was a couple of contender conflicts there. The contender elite for Stade, July 5th, 6th weekend. Stade's always that weekend, so that's AVP knowing what it was doing. Not expecting a lot of conflicts there, I would say, between an elite level event and a contender domestically. The contender challenge is a little bit bigger of a deal, but there's a lot of events on this calendar for the American teams looking to get the number of events in there, number of good results, and hoping to qualify for world champs. And then you got 2 league week events, 2 league weeks that are in theory a conflict, but only 4 of 8 teams playing in the league, so potentially that might not turn out to be a conflict at all for some or all of those teams. So I bring you that just to give you an idea of the conflicts that you can expect when you see a team not show up for an event, maybe a conflict going domestically or internationally. Not an Olympic qualification year, so the decisions may be a little bit easier in that you're not looking to qualify for the Olympics by missing a international event. You're merely looking to get good results in, make money, and qualify for the World Champs coming up here in November in Australia. I think the most notable for me, one last thought on that, I said it already a little bit, is just what that tells you about the politics between the management of the Beach Pro Tour and the management of the AVP. And the management of the Beach Pro Tour seemingly unaffected by any decision the AVP makes. And I wouldn't necessarily say vice versa there, but I think you do have to respect an organization that says, I'm going to do my own thing and let the chips fall where they may, not worrying about a competitor doing your own thing. So I think that's probably the approach that the AVP's got to take there. Deference at a minimum to the Beach Pro Tour, and the Beach Pro Tour feeling like it can go ahead and do whatever it wants. It'll be interesting to see if the Elite 16 suffers there by being the same weekend as the MBO. So that was what I thought was pretty interesting as far as the schedule updates go on the Beach Pro Tour. Let's go to our feature story of the night. Before we do, a reminder, you see it there in the bottom of your screen. Next week, it's the Off-SZN show, Season 1 finale. March 12th, live, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, right here on the Bet the Beach YouTube channel. It's the Off-SZN show, Season 1 finale, a star-studded affair. We will have games, awards, all sorts of lines, odds and spreads, futures, an interactive game that you can play over the course of the 2025 season, like fantasy volleyball kind of, where you qualify for points, and I'll put a prize in there, a Bet the Beach hoodie, something like that. So a star-studded affair, the final episode of Season 1 of the Off-SZN show coming up next Wednesday night, March 12th, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, live here on YouTube, the Bet the Beach YouTube channel. And while you're looking for it, give us a like and subscribe if you're listening on all major podcast platforms. There'll be plenty of content coming up throughout the course of the season, but it's the Off-SZN show finale next Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. All right, let's talk about our main story of the night, and it is the Manhattan Beach Open women's history all time. So like we did last week on the show, we took a look at 7 decades of the Manhattan Beach Open being played on the women's side. So you got the list right there. You can take a look at it. Women's wins all time. Who's on your list? Well, if you're somebody of my age, I'm 40 years old or just about to be. If you're somebody that's within 10 to 15 years older, I would say, so up to about 55 years old and below, which I say would be the predominant amount of my Bet the Beach listeners and viewers. I appreciate you all, no matter what age you are, by the way. You may not be familiar with some of the names on this list. You are undoubtedly familiar with a few of them. Kerry Walsh Jennings, 7 Manhattan Beach wins all time. Misty May Trainer, I'm sure you know that name. 5 Manhattan Beach women's wins all time. All 5 of those with Kerry Walsh Jennings. You may be familiar with a Linda Handley, but you're probably and definitely and certainly familiar with a player that I've called the GOAT on the women's side. I think Kerry Walsh Jennings, after taking a look back at the Manhattan Beach Open results, might have something to say about that. April Ross with 4 wins all time, as you see there. Her first in 2014 with partner Kerry Walsh Jennings, and then the next 3 with 2 different partners, Jennifer Fatma in 2015, and then 2018 and 2021 with Alex Kleiman. They did take 1 second, losing that 2019 event to Melissa Humaniparides and Sarah Pavin. Let's take a look back before we take a look forward at the history of the MBO and who was the queen of the pier at any given time. The first Manhattan Beach Open event, 1966, won by Jean Brunicardi and Jeanette Latrielle. They won the first 3 straight Manhattan Beach Open championships. It would be their only 3 as a team. So your first queens of the pier, they took the spot, and I'd say they hold it for about 5 years there. All the 60s at that point, right up until 1972. Jean Brunicardi, Jeanette Latrielle, 3 straight Manhattan Beach Open champions. 1972 to 1986. Now, I know a lot of you are going to get on me and say, it's queen of the pier, not queens of the pier. With a combination like we had there, Brunicardi and Latrielle, or like we had on the men's side with Mike Bright and Mike O'Hara, when 2 players won it together as a team, I gave them joint queen of the pier. For 72 to 86, a different story. Kathy Gregory and Nina Matthews won the first of this stretch in 1972. They won it together as a partnership. The next 14 Manhattan Beach Opens, they won 12 of them. So for a 15 Manhattan Beach Open final stretch, a 14-year stretch, 15 finals, Kathy and or Nina made 13 of those 15. Kathy ending up with 7, Nina ending up with 7 of her own. Kathy appearing in 3 other finals that she lost. Nina appeared in 3 more finals that she lost as well. So 72 to 86, the Kathy Gregory and Nina Matthews, they were your co-queens of the pier for that period. From 87 to 90, a similar situation. Linda Chisholm and Jackie Silva. They won 2 together, and then they won 1 each with a different partner. So from 87 to 90, just a 4-year stretch, on the pier at any one given time was either Linda or Jackie, and 2 times it was them together. So they were your joint queens of the pier for a 4-year stretch there from 1987 to 1990. In the 90s, the Manhattan Beach Open not being run here, notably from 95 to 2000, Carolyn Kirby won 5 straight with 4 different partners in the 1990s. And because there was none from 95 to 2021, that means she won them in a row. 1990 won with Jackie Silva, the aforementioned Jackie Silva, the queen of the pier from the previous decade. She won with Angela Rock in 91, Nancy Reno in 92, and then she won 2 with Liz Masakayan in 1993 and 1994. Carolyn Kirby, your queen of the pier for the 1990s. Then the Manhattan Beach Open comes back in 2001. No defined queen of the pier until 2023, and that was the introduction of Kerry Walsh Jennings to the Manhattan Beach Open. 2003, she appears for the first time with her partner Misty May Trainer, wins the whole thing. The following year, Holly McPeak, the great Holly McPeak and Elaine Youngs, avenge a finals loss to Misty and Kerry by winning in 04. Then, what do Misty and Kerry do? All they do is they come back and they win 4 straight. Misty, Kerry win 5 in 6 years. Kerry won 7 in 7 finals appearances over the course of 11 years. Kerry Walsh Jennings, your undisputed queen of the pier from 2003 to 2014. In 2014, we have a co-queen of the pier for 1 year. It's what you like to call, or what I like to call, your classic handoff, your classic torch passing. As I said it, where Phil passed it to, Karch passed it to Phil passed it to Trevor. Kerry Walsh, April Ross, winning the 2014 Manhattan Beach Open Finals. Kerry had won it the previous year with Whitney Pavlik. The following year, April wins it with Jennifer Fatma. So the torch passed in 2014. April Ross then wins 4 in 5 finals appearances with 3 different partners between 2014 to 2021. So I put there at the bottom 21 to question mark, who's next? And I think many of you may take issue with me not assigning a queen of the pier dating back to 2021. And the reason that I chose not to do that, you take a look at the bottom of the list there. Active players, wins all time at the granddaddy, or in this case, grandmother of them all, the Manhattan Beach Open. Emily Capers, previously Emily Day, 2 Manhattan Beach Open wins. Has not made a finals or a semifinal in the Manhattan Beach Open since 2018. So a 6-year drought for Emily Day not making a semifinal to Manhattan Beach Open. Can she get back on the list and move to 3? I would call it unlikely at this point, but she's the only active player right now with more than 1 Manhattan Beach Open win. There are 7 players active on the tour playing right now that have 1 Manhattan Beach Open win. Melissa Humana Parodies won it back in 2019 with partner Sarah Pavin. Sarah Hughes winning it in 2022 with Kelly Klinsky, also won it there, still an active player. Betsy Flint just announcing pregnant with her 2nd child. Congratulations to Betsy. Betsy won it in 2023 with Julia Scholes. Betsy is let's say this. The concept of having a queen of the pier is similar to having the concept of a championship belt. It is much easier to do with the advantage of hindsight. If you were forced to pick a queen of the pier for the last 4 years, or the last 3 years, I guess, where April Ross got it most recently in 2021, I think you would be forced to give it to Betsy Flint. Betsy Flint losing in the finals in 2021 to the A-team. Betsy Flint losing in the finals with her partner Kelly Chang to Sarah Hughes and Kelly Klinsky in 2022. Betsy winning it with Julia in 2023. And then Betsy taking a 2nd place at the MBO again in the finals against TKN in 2024. So 4 straight MBOs for Betsy, 4 straight finals appearances, and that 1 MBO win in 2023. Also took a 3rd with Emily Day in 2018. So if you were forced to pick the queen of the pier over the course of the last 4 years, dating back to April in 2021, right now I think it'd be Betsy Flint. I think for at least the 2022-2023 stretch, I think in history, it'll probably have to be Betsy Flint. The reason I'm hesitant to assign her that now is because at the bottom of your list there, you see Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss, both with 1 MBO victory. Taryn and Kristen, I'm not even confident they played in 2023. So they played in 2024, won in 2024. And Taryn and Kristen, your odds-on favorite, I would say at this point, to put their names on the pier multiple times, 2, 3, 4 times, and potentially be co-queens of the pier when we look back at this 10, 15 years from now. Julia Scholes would also be on that list as far as highest odds to be your next queen of the pier. Julia with one win in 2 finals appearances over the last 2 years. So she's a name that could potentially be on this list. Betsy, Julia, and TKN, probably the odds-on favorites right now to be your next queen of the pier. All active players with a Manhattan Beach Open win. Notable players that aren't on this list, notable players that do not have their names on the pier yet. Brandy Wilkerson, her best finish at the Manhattan Beach Open was a 3rd with Sarah Hughes in 2019. Kelly Chang, another player that you might expect to be on this list. 2 finals appearances, 2018 with Brittany Hochevar, and then in 2022 with the aforementioned Betsy Flint. So Brandy, not yet on the pier. Kelly, not yet on the pier. A couple other players here that you could say probably pretty good odds to get their first coming up here over the next couple of years. Haley Harward, probably Therese Cannon, and then the skyrocketing, the wonder kid on the women's side, I think you have to say. Megan Kraft, not yet on the pier, but if you had to put odds right now on probability of winning a Manhattan Beach Open over the course of their career, I think the probabilities will be pretty high for Megan Kraft. So that'll do it for us tonight. Let me know in the comments. Let me know. Give me a DM on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Let me know what you think of the list as far as who was the queen of the pier. I think Kerry Walsh-Jennings having it and holding it for an 11-year period probably makes her, I would say, the GOAT of the Manhattan Beach Open. I think that'd probably be pretty hard to argue. Being at the top of this list, 7 wins all time, sharing that with Kathy Gregory and Nina Matthews. But Kerry 7, Misty 5, April 4. Who's the next player to get up into this very esteemed company, to get their name on the pier multiple times? I think right now, if you're taking bets, I think TKN at the top of the list. I would say to get their name on the pier the first time, Brandy, Kelly, they're on the top of your list right now as far as odds to win your first. So that is just a very fun look back at 7 decades on the Manhattan Beach Open. And I want to share one more quote with you. I bought this book about a week and a half ago as I was starting to do my research on the history of the Manhattan Beach Open, because I wanted to put some stories together, as you've seen, about who was king of the pier and who was queen of the pier at any given time. Gotten some good feedback on that. It's a lot of different opinions. So this book right here, just starting to page through it, by Art Kavilian. It is the Manhattan Beach Open, the Wimbledon of beach volleyball. And it started off with the quote that I figured I'd share with you in closing tonight as we finish our 2-part series on the Manhattan Beach Open. And it's a quote from the winningest man of the NBO all-time, Karch Kiraly. As we talked about last week, he's got 8, Phil's got 7. Can Phil get his 8th? Karch saying, quote, "If I hadn't won the Manhattan Open at least once in my career, I would have felt a huge void. Almost by definition, to become great, you have to be victorious at Manhattan." End quote. That's Karch Kiraly. That's your all-time winningest player of the Manhattan Beach Open. 8-time winner, 8 times. Karch's name is on that pier. So a good quote there by him. So I say in closing of the 2-part series in the Manhattan Beach Open, the granddaddy of them all, who's next? That's always the question we got to be looking at. That'll do it for us here tonight. A reminder, next week, next Wednesday, March 12th, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. We'll be right back here in the Bet the Beach studios. We will be live. So we're going to be taking your phone calls, 978-254-1707. We'll be taking your DMs. It's at Bet the Beach on all the social media platforms. We'll be in the chat responding to questions. An interactive, no-holds-barred, spectacular event. There'll be celebrations, awards. Don't miss it. Next Wednesday, March 12th. Next Wednesday, March 12th, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. It is the season finale of the off-season show, Season 1 as we start to look towards the 2025 beach volleyball season. That'll do it for us here tonight. Thank you for joining us. We will talk to you next Wednesday. Until then, have a good night. Have a pleasant tomorrow. See ya.
Wake up, sunshine, let's go play. Beach volleyball is the way. Sand in my toes, sky so blue. Fun in the sun, just me and you. Bounce on the beach, set the ball high. Smiles all around and we reach for the sky. Surfs up and laughter's in the breeze. Join the podcast if you please. Having in, watch us fly. Under the sun we feel so high. Spike and surf, hear the cheer. Every day is summer here. Wake up, sunshine, let's go play. Beach volleyball is the way. Sand in my toes, sky so blue. Fun in the sun, just me and you. Bounce on the beach, set the ball high. Smiles all around and we reach for the sky. Surfs up and laughter's in the breeze. Join the podcast if you please. Dive and dig, watch us fly. Under the sun we feel so high. Spike and surf, hear the cheer. Every day is summer here. Dive and dig, watch us fly. Under the sun we feel so high. Spike and surf, hear the cheer. Every day is summer here.